Discovered. My son's shocking outburst revealed a hidden truth that changed our lives forever. The auditorium buzzed with warmth, laughter spilling out like sunlight through the open doors. Sarah sat in the back, her heart swelling with pride as she watched her son, Jake, laugh with his classmates. The smell of freshly baked cookies wafted through the air, mingling with the joyful chatter of parents and children. This was supposed to be a special day, a celebration of their hard work and dedication. But little did she know it would unravel everything. As the principal approached the microphone, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She thought of her long hours at the diner, the evenings spent working as a cleaning lady, all to provide Jake a brighter future. She suppressed her worries, painting on a smile, masking the sleepless nights where financial fears pressed down on her like a weight. But there, in that moment, hope danced in her heart. Then it happened. In a packed hall, shaken by giggles and applause, Jake stood up, his small body quivering. His voice, clear and innocent, pierced through the cozy ambience. "We can't afford new school clothes because my mom doesn't have enough money." The truth hung in the air like a dark cloud, chilling and unexpected. Sarah's heart plummeted. Gasps erupted, laughter died, and whispers began to swirl like a tornado around her. Her cheeks burned as she sank into her seat, overwhelmed by a wave of shame. The judgment in the eyes of her neighbors felt like daggers. Suddenly, the facade of their tight-knit community shattered, her worst fears laid bare. Jake's unintentional confession pulled the curtain from the struggle she had fought so hard to hide. The weight of their financial burdens suddenly turned visible, and it felt like the ground beneath her had fallen away. Life had already been rough, but this was a new low. Jake's face twisted with regret, his eyes wide and ashamed. The unknowing look he shot at Sarah cut deep, like he had betrayed her trust. They were in this together, but now a distance brewed between them. Her heart crumbled further as her mind spiraled, wondering if he would ever forgive her for not providing a more stable life. Before the moment could sink her deeper, a familiar face emerged from the crowd. Tom, the community's kind-hearted veteran, stepped forward. "Hey folks, let us not jump to conclusions." His voice resonated with warmth as he turned to Sarah and Jake, offering understanding in their storm of chaos. As he spoke, she found solace in his words. They weren't alone. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Tom's support ignited a spark, urging Sarah to confront the conversation she'd been avoiding with Jake. A newfound understanding blossomed between the two. But as the community began to process Jake's revelations, ignorance clashed with reality, and the walls of judgment grew higher. Late at night, as they lay together, Sarah whispered her dreams of a brighter future. "Someday, it'll be different, I promise." Jake's nod felt half-hearted, and the air between them was thick with ambiguity. Was healing in sight? Could they ever bridge the distance that had been born from that shocking moment? The lingering question filled her with both dread and hope as she glanced at her son, wondering if this moment would change their lives forever. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Sarah felt as if she were living in a glass box everyone could see inside, but she felt utterly trapped. Each time she stepped out of her house, the whispers felt louder. "Did you hear about Sarah and Jake?" The judgment cloaked her like a heavy coat that she just couldn't shake off. Jake was unusually quiet. The sparkle in his eyes had dulled, replaced by a storm of confusion and guilt. He seemed to withdraw deeper into himself, spending hours in his room. When Sarah tried to talk to him, he only shrugged, his answers barely above a whisper. Every day felt like they were both tiptoeing around a fragile truth, a truth that had suddenly gotten too big to ignore yet too painful to address. One evening, Sarah decided it was time. She was tired of dancing around the truth and knew that they needed to confront it together. She knocked softly on Jake's bedroom door and opened it without waiting for a reply. Her heart raced at the sight of her son sitting on the edge of his bed, head down, fingers fidgeting with a loose thread on his pajama bottoms. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked gently, sitting beside him. He looked up, his expression a mixture of fear and tentative curiosity. "I don't want to talk about it, Mom," he murmured, eyes dropping back to the floor. "I know, sweetheart," she replied, her chest tightening. "But keeping it inside isn't going to help. We can face this together." Jake shifted uncomfortably, his brows furrowing in a way that made Sarah's heart ache. "I made you look bad. I didn't mean to." His voice cracked as he spoke, and Sarah could see the weight of guilt pressing down on him, heavy and harsh. "Jake, you didn't make me look bad," she soothed, wrapping an arm around him. "It's okay to say things sometimes. I want to be honest about our struggles, just like you were. We're a team, remember?" He nodded slowly, and for a moment, the wall between them seemed to weaken. But as he looked up at her, Sarah felt that familiar sense of dread lurking. What if they never see us the same again? Jake's voice trembled, eyes wide. What if they think I'm just a poor kid? His words cut like a knife. Sarah caught her breath, the reality of their situation crashing down around them. She wished she could shield him from the world's judgment, from the cruel nature of some people, but she knew it was impossible. People can be unkind, but it doesn't change who we are. You're so much more than what they see. You're brilliant, funny, and brave. Brave? Jake scoffed, his face a mask of confusion and anger. "I embarrassed you in front of everyone." "No, honey," Sarah said softly. "You spoke a truth. And that's what matters. Honestly, that courage is what I admire the most. There's no shame in our struggles." In that moment, a flicker of understanding shone in Jake's eyes. It was small but palpable. She took a deep breath, longing to reach through the emotions swirling between them. As night wrapped its arms around their home, they shared stories and memories, allowing laughter and some tears to slip into their conversation. The warmth of their connection slowly returned like a long-lost friend. With every word, they began rebuilding what had been shaken. But as Sarah tucked Jake into bed, a lingering thought loomed large. Could they ever truly overcome the community's perception? The idea troubled her mind, the darkness creeping back in as she closed the door quietly behind her, leaving her heart heavy with unanswered questions. The next day, Sarah was determined to take a bold step. She had nothing to lose at this point, a reality that terrified and empowered her at the same time. How would the community respond if she took a stand? Would it bring them closer? Or would it tear the fragile threads of their bond even further apart? The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window, casting soft light on the table where Sarah sat, her heart racing. She needed to act. There was a fire in her belly, an urge to address the whispers openly. What would happen if she organized a gathering? A chance for dialogue. She felt the weight of Jake's fears, a mirrored reflection of her own. As she stirred her coffee, a plan began to take shape. It would be open, honest, and inviting, a chance for everyone in their community to see who they really were. But getting there felt like approaching the edge of an abyss. She imagined an audience's skeptical faces, their judgment hanging thick in the air. Could she risk it? "Mom?" Jake's voice disrupted her thoughts, pulling her back to reality. He leaned against the doorframe, looking more like a small boy than the teenager she knew. "I was thinking about the meeting at the community center." She glanced at him, searching for the right words. "What would you think if we spoke there? About everything?" His expression turned serious. "Do you think they'll listen?" "I hope so," she said softly, her mind racing back to the judgments that had tied them down. Jake hesitated, biting his lip. "What if they just make it worse?" "That's a risk we have to take," she replied, trying to convey her determination. "We can't let others define us. It's our truth, Jake, and no one can take that away." He studied her, the uncertainty in his eyes slowly giving way to a hint of hope. "Okay, if you think we should try, I'm willing." Sarah's heart soared. She reached out and squeezed his hand tightly, the connection between them solidifying once more. In that touch, she felt the weight of their shared struggles, but also the thrill of possibility. The day rolled by in a blur of preparation. Sarah printed flyers, hung them around town, and reached out to neighbors. The days of silence were over. She wanted to foster conversations that could shatter glass boxes and tear down walls. Jake helped her with the logistics, his mood gradually lifting as he engaged in organizing the event. He even suggested a few things to say. It felt like they were reclaiming their narrative, one small step at a time. When the evening of the gathering arrived, the community center felt charged with nervous energy, a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Sarah stood in front of a simple podium, her fingers tracing the smooth surface as she took deep breaths to steady herself. She scanned the room filled with familiar faces. Some looked sympathetic, while others wore masks of indifference or skepticism. Jake stood beside her, his shoulder brushing against hers, grounding her amidst the anxiety. "You've got this, Mom," he whispered, and his faith lifted her spirits. As she stepped forward to speak, she felt the weight of her heart pushing against her chest. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice shaking but rising with determination. "We're here because we want to address the elephant in the room. The truth about us." What followed was a deep dive into their lives, an unveiling of emotions and truths. She spoke of the struggles, the judgments, the love she had for her son, the heavy burden of shame they carried. But as she glanced toward Jake, who now seemed emboldened, she knew this was only the beginning. Suddenly, a hand shot up from the back of the room. "Why should we care?" A voice called out, sharp and accusatory. The atmosphere turned electric, the tension palpable. This was not what Sarah had hoped for. The challenge hung heavily in the air, ready to split the crowd. Jake looked at her, panic flickering in his eyes. She took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Because we're not just our struggles," she responded. "We're a family. We want to connect, not just with you, but with each other." The audience fell silent, a flicker of curiosity lighting the eyes of some. But they weren't done yet. Sarah knew this first step was just a shadow of a much larger journey ahead. The crowd, once hesitant, seemed ready to engage, or perhaps become more defensive. Where would this lead? Would they discover empathy behind the whispered rumors? Would the community stand with them or against them? As she surveyed the room, a feeling of urgency gripped her. What would it take for the walls to come down? Would they find the courage to embrace authenticity, or would fear shroud the values they were meant to uphold? The next moments hung like a delicate thread in the air, frail yet holding the world's weight. Sarah's heart raced as she felt the temperature shift in the room. The question from the back had sliced through the hopeful mood like a knife. She glanced at Jake, whose expression was a mix of fear and confusion. Could they really bear the weight of this moment? She took a breath, trying to muster the confidence that seemed to drain from her each passing second. "We care because love is stronger than fear. Together, we can build something better," she said, her voice gaining strength with each word. The crowd shifted slightly, some exchanging glances, but silenced by her sincerity. She could feel the weight of their scrutiny, but also a spark of hope flickering as her message began to sink in. "Everyone has a story," Sarah continued, her fingers gripping the podium as if it was the only thing anchoring her. "What you see on the surface doesn't tell you the whole truth. It never does. Each and every one of you has also faced challenges, hasn't you?" Murmurs spread through the crowd, a flicker of something that sounded like understanding. This was the dialogue she longed for, but hadn't expected to extract so easily. Could they really be on the brink of something greater? Jake leaned in, emboldened by his mother's words. "I've spent years feeling like I had to hide, to pretend to be someone I'm not," he said, his voice stronger now. "It's exhausting. I just want to be me." A few heads nodded. The air felt charged, electric. Sarah saw hope mirrored in some of the eyes looking back at them. Yet, a few still looked cold, unyielding. "What if some of you have experience in this?" Sarah tried to direct the conversation. "Who here has felt different? Is there anyone not afraid to share?" A hand rose cautiously, a man in jeans and a faded baseball cap. "I've been there. I try to hide my past, my struggles, but you're right. It's heavy." His voice wavered but held honesty. "Thank you for sharing," Sarah replied, feeling the weight of vulnerability settle among them. One by one, others opened up. A woman, nearly brought to tears, shared her own struggles with addiction and how the community's judgment had trapped her in silence for too long. Each revelation painted a clearer picture. The crowd was growing more connected, empathy brewing among them. Yet, right when the tide seemed to shift, another voice from the back piped up, this time filled with defiance. But it's not fair. What about my kids? What if they catch on? What will others think? A moment of tension hung in the air, thick as molasses. Fear, always lurking just beneath the surface, was out in the open again. Jake looked at Sarah, his eyes wide with concern. Did they dare push this farther? She could feel the turning point, their chance to create something meaningful hanging in the balance. With her heart pounding, Sarah responded, "What if we teach our kids to accept, to love differently? What if we break the chains that divide us?" The atmosphere crackled with tension. Would that idea be enough? Or would fear return to rule the day? Suddenly, Jake, emboldened by the voices around him, raised his own hand. "It's not about who stands where. It's about standing together," he said, and silence slid over the room. In that moment, Sarah could only hope the courage she had seen grow within her son was contagious. Would the fear dissolve into acceptance, or would they retreat back into their familiar silence? As she stood there, the energy shifting more than ever, she realized they were at a crossroads. The path before them could lead to connection or divide. But the question hanging in the air remained. Would they dare to choose unity over fear? The air was thick with anticipation. Sarah could see her words hanging like an invisible thread connecting everyone in the room. They were poised on the edge of something profound, something that could transform lives. She felt a rush of hope surge through her, igniting the fight within her. The voice of dissent echoed again from the back, sharper this time. "But what if we don't want to be one? What if we want to stay in our separate lanes? It's safer." The man in the baseball cap shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't alone in his fear, but the questions churned like storms in a restless sea. Jake took a deep breath. It was time to push past the fear. He stepped forward, eyes blazing with conviction. It might feel safe, but living in fear isn't living at all. Life is about taking chances, about the joy and the pain that make us who we are. If we can't be honest with each other, what's the point? He was shaking slightly, but his voice was clear. The hum of murmurs rippled through the crowd again. Some faces were hardened, while others displayed reluctant curiosity. They were at a tipping point. Would they lean into the unknown, or would they retreat back into the shadows? Sarah's heart swelled with pride as she watched her son. "You're right, Jake," she said, her voice steady and warm. "Life doesn't come with a safety net. We'll stumble, we'll fall, but we'll also love, and we'll grow stronger together." A wave of empathy washed over the crowd. Eyes softened and shoulders relaxed. One by one, more people began to speak, voices trembling, but filled with truth. A mother shared how she had kept her daughter's identity a secret, fearing judgment from others. A young man raised his hand to share how he had lost friends when he decided to embrace his true self. Each voice added a thread to the growing fabric of unity, but then came another interruption, hauntingly familiar. What if this goes too far? It was a woman with a thin frame, her hands clenching her purse like a lifeline. "I've seen friendships break over this. I don't want my family to be the next casualty." The words struck hard, like a clap of thunder. Jake's shoulders slumped for a moment, and Sarah could feel the weight of doubt echoing through the crowd. She stepped closer and took a breath, casting aside her own fears to speak directly to the woman. "What if we teach our children that our differences don't define our worth? What if we show them that love is more powerful than the hate that sometimes surrounds us?" The room fell silent, and Sarah could almost hear the collective heartbeat of the crowd. These were the moments that shaped lives, that created change. She believed that more than anything. Just then, a quiet voice lightened the mood, piercing through the tension. "And if nothing else, can't we just agree that pizza always brings people together?" Laughter erupted, dissolving some of the tension. It was just a small moment, but every smile sparked joy. As the laughter mingled with relief, Sarah felt something shift again. It wasn't only fear dissipating, it was hope threading its way through the cracks. But as she looked around, she still saw uncertainty in some faces. With a last hopeful plea, she stated, "We all have a choice. Every day, we can choose to love, to understand, to be brave. Who will take that leap with us?" Silence enveloped them, the question hanging in the air like a promise. Sarah's heart raced, knowing they were almost there. But she wondered, would the courage to step forward outweigh the comfort of remaining quiet? And as they stood together, the answer felt just out of reach. Would they dare to change their story? The moment was electric, charged with the possibility of change. Sarah held her breath, her eyes scanning the room. She felt the weight of the question linger between them, as if it had come alive. As brief as that silence was, it felt years long. It was a pivot point where many would either take a step forward or retreat back into their fears. Finally, breaking the stillness, a woman stood up, her movements deliberate as she brushed her hair back from her face. I'll go first," she stammered, a note of resolve creeping into her voice. "I don't want my children to inherit my fear. I want them to feel loved for who they are, not who I want them to be." Her shoulders shook slightly, but her words rang out with clarity. Then a ripple began. One by one, others found their voices. A tall man with glasses shared about the shame he carried from his childhood, how it gnawed him until he learned to embrace his true self after years of hiding. A teenage girl stood, voice quivering yet powerful. "I want to show my friends it's okay to be different. I'm tired of pretending." As more stories echoed around the room, courage pooled in the air. Sarah could feel it, a blend of vulnerability and resolve merging together like raw ingredients waiting to be baked into something beautiful. Hope blossomed, fragility turning to strength with each heartfelt revelation. The room began to transform, a community rooted in strength instead of fear. Yet, amid the uplifting moments, Sarah felt a twinge of anxiety gnawing in her stomach. Not everyone had spoken. What about the man in the baseball cap? What about the woman who had expressed doubt earlier? Their silence hung heavy, contrasting the hope blossoming around them. Each shared truth made the quiet more pronounced. Jake stepped forward again, sensing the silence. "We might be scared." "It's only natural," he said, looking directly at the woman with the clenched purse, his eyes locking onto hers. "But what if the only way to heal is to break down the walls we've built? What if that's how we find true connection?" The tension in the room thickened, a double-edged sword of possibility. Sarah felt her heart race. This was the crux of change. Would they break through the silence and let the light in? Before anyone could respond, the baseball cap man spoke, hesitantly but deliberately. I guess I could share a little. It's hard to know who would still be my friends if they knew my truth." A murmur of empathy washed over the room. "It's scary," he continued, his voice picking up strength. "But maybe I dread losing them more than I fear what would happen if they knew." Laughter soon accompanied the tension, but this laughter felt different. It wasn't the light-hearted giggle before, it was laced with a sweet relief. Now, they were laughing at the absurdity of fear, united in their struggle. As they started to connect the dots, Sarah's heart raced even more. Could they really be on the verge of something significant? A moment of honest, open dialogue? Would they expose their truths and show that it is okay to be vulnerable? But then, amidst the newfound camaraderie, a sudden realization struck her like a lightning bolt. There was another truth lurking. Something more personal, something Sarah had tucked away deep within her heart, afraid to bring it into the light. And as she caught Jake's eye, she felt the words stir at the base of her throat. Would she share her hidden fear? Would she expose herself, risking everything, just as they had begun to open up? The air felt electric, saturated with possibility, as she took a deep breath, ready to find her voice. What would she reveal next? Would it alter the very fabric of their gathering? With her heart pounding, Sarah could barely hear the ruffling of chairs or the soft murmurs of encouragement around her. It was as if the room had narrowed into a spotlight focused solely on her. The weight of her unspoken truth pressed down, heavy yet liberating. She took another breath, steadying herself. "I've not just been a spectator in this room of pain and fear," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I've also carried a secret, and it's about my son." The room quieted, every eye now fixed on her. The sudden intensity of their attention both frightened and emboldened her. She swallowed hard, the lump in her throat swallowing any hesitation. He's 14 and he's struggling. He deals with anxiety, gets bullied, and sometimes I feel like I'm losing him." A few gasps echoed, but Sarah pressed on, urgency propelling her words. "I've spent so much time trying to shield him from pain that I neglected to teach him that it's okay to show who he really is. There have been days when I wonder if it's my fault." The real vulnerability hit her like a wave. She could feel tears prickling at her eyes. As she glanced around, she saw nods, understanding perched on the edges of every face. They resonated with her struggle, the weight of parental expectations, the fear of failing those we love. The other day, I overheard him telling one of his friends that he couldn't stand feeling like he was just a burden. My heart dropped. I thought I was protecting him, but in truth, I was suffocating him. She wiped a stray tear from her cheek, feeling a mixture of shame and relief. Jake stepped closer, mirroring her emotion. "You're not alone, Sarah. It's never easy, and that recognition, it's the first step," he said softly, rousing the room with his warmth. His empathy pulled Sarah further into the moment, fostering courage within her as she continued. "I want him to embrace his true self, but how can I help him when I can't even show him my own fears? How can I be honest when all I want is to be the strong, perfect mother?" The pain of her question hung in the air. Then, like a stone cast into calm waters, the baseball cap man, who had shared his fears moments earlier, spoke up once more. "You know, I've hidden my truth for so long, it gets easier when you finally let it out. Maybe your son needs to see you being real, too. Maybe it's not just about shielding him, but showing him vulnerability is a strength." His words settled over the room, like a healing balm. Everyone seemed to share a collective acknowledgement, a realization that perhaps the path to healing was paved not just with strength, but with authenticity. Sarah felt a surge of gratitude, warmth spiraling through her. It was liberating to share this burden, to strip away the facade she had built. I want to work on this together with him. I want us to support each other, fears and all." "Am I too late?" "Never," someone murmured from across the room, their voice gentle yet firm. "As long as there's love, there's always a chance to start anew." A warm glow enveloped Sarah, pushing back the shadows of doubt. It was liberating to lay bare her fears in a room filled with compassion. Now, a new fear gnawed at her, a fear of not really knowing how to navigate this newfound openness with her son. As the meeting began to transition into a more open discussion, Sarah felt a knot of determination twist in her stomach. She could sense a shift, no longer just self-reflection, but an outpouring of shared experiences, lessons, and truths. Yet, as they continued, she knew this was only the beginning of their journey together. The question loomed in her heart. What if bringing this truth to her son might unearth even deeper fears, the ones she hadn't yet faced? With each shared moment of vulnerability among the group, Sarah's spirit brightened. They were breaking barriers, and little by little, they were learning that authenticity could rewrite their stories. Could this group become a launchpad, pushing them all towards healing and connection they'd never known? Would they be able to turn their individual fears into a collective strength? The room pulsed with shared stories, each voice stacking on top of the last, forming a tapestry of pain and hope. Sarah felt the energy around her shift. It was comforting yet overwhelming, like standing before a banner of sunlight after lurking in shadows for too long. She could sense her own resolve swelling, fueled by the struggles voiced by others. A woman named Lisa shared a story about her son who had discovered his passion for art amidst the chaos of middle school drama. He nearly gave up drawing because he felt embarrassed about being different, she confessed, her eyes shimmering with tears. But one day, he just let go. And now, he uses that art to speak his truth. It saved him. Sarah's heart twisted. She pictured her own son, lost in the swirl of chaos at school, a canvas of possibility trapped beneath layers of doubt. The thought felt heavy and hopeful at once. A man with salt and pepper hair stepped up, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been there, feeling like I'd failed my kid. But now, I work on myself too. Trust me, showing them our struggles makes them braver. It's a process, day by day." Together, Sarah whispered to herself, the word peppering her mind like a mantra. Together. She didn't need to figure everything out at once. Progress wouldn't be swift, but it could be real, shared between a mother and her son. She shivered at the thought of trying to help him navigate the dark waters of his feelings. With every revelation shared, the bonds between them felt deeper. It was astonishing how invisible threads of honesty had woven through the space, linking heart to heart, fear to fear. "Okay, everyone," Jake called out, raising his hands to gather attention. "Let us form a circle and share one thing we learned today or one commitment moving forward." Hands reached out, and soon they stood in an expansive circle, vulnerability shimmering between them. Each commitment was like a small light battling against the dark. "I'll speak to my son about my own mental health, and I will let him know he is never a burden, only loved." As Sarah listened, an unshakable realization struck her. This was what she had been missing. The ache of silence was being replaced with the harmony of connection. She felt that if they could share burdens together, if she could walk alongside her son through his struggles, there was hope for light to break through, and when it was her turn, she held her breath. "I promise to show my son my real self," she vowed, meeting the eyes of those around her. "The scared parts of me, the imperfect parts, want him to know that he can be free to express whatever it is he feels." The group exhaled in unison, a wave of support crashing over her. A quiet smile broke upon her lips, layered with a mix of relief and newfound determination. But as the meeting closed, a single thought gnawed at the edges of her mind. Would her son accept this open honesty from her? Would it be too late for him to trust her with the truth of what he was feeling? As she walked out of the room, the cool evening air washed over her, mingling with the warmth of shared words, still illuminating her heart. She knew one thing for certain: this journey was only just beginning. What awaited her at home? Would her son be ready to reveal the depth of his fears, or would her attempt at honesty suddenly spiral into something she never expected? The sound of Sarah's footsteps echoed as she walked toward her car, her mind a flurry of thoughts. Each step felt heavier than the last, like gravity had tightened its grip, pulling her back into uncertainty. She could already envision her son's face, his eyes filled with hesitance, his brows furrowed. Would he understand her struggle? Would he accept her vulnerability? As she drove home, night rolled in, wrapping the world in darkness. Streetlights flickered by like small waypoints in a vast ocean of doubt. The conversation from the group meeting replayed in her head. The stories of resilience, of love overcoming fear, they were powerful. Yet, an unsettling fear surged beneath her encouragement. What if her son turned away from her honesty? Arriving home, the house felt eerily quiet. She opened the door slowly, trying to ease into the space. "Hey, buddy," she called, hoping for the sound of his voice, a comforting confirmation that he was there. "Yeah," came the muffled reply from his room. Sarah walked to his door, her heart picking up the tempo. She knocked gently. "Can I come in?" "Sure." She pushed the door open, finding him sprawled on his bed, headphones on and eyes glued to his phone. The soft glow illuminated his face, casting shadows and light against his features. It felt intimate and distant all at once. "Hey," she said, taking a seat on the edge of his bed. "I just got back from a meeting about parenting." His gaze didn't quite meet hers, his fingers mindlessly scrolling on the screen. "Cool." Taking a deep breath, Sarah could feel the knot in her stomach tightening. "I learned some things, and I wanted to talk to you about how I've been feeling." He paused, glancing up, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Wait, what do you mean?" "I don't want to pretend everything is okay anymore," she admitted, the confession tumbling out, ready or not. "I want you to know me, the real me. I struggle sometimes, too, and it's okay for you to share your struggles with me." She watched as his expression shifted, a wave of unease passing over him. "Mom, I don't know if I want to talk about that stuff." The words stung, each syllable hitting harder than she had anticipated. "I understand, but I promise I'll listen. I just want you to know you're not alone in this." For a moment, silence draped over them like a heavy blanket. The air felt thick, pregnant with unsaid thoughts. She searched his face for a hint, a thread she could grasp onto. Suddenly, he sat up, leaving the comfort of his pillow behind. "It's hard, you know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes, I just really don't fit in. I feel like I'm the odd one out." Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. This was it. The moment she anticipated, a sliver of the truth sliding into view. You're not the only one who feels that way. I feel out of place sometimes, too. He looked at her, uncertainty mingling with curiosity. Really? Yes. And I want us to be able to talk about these feelings together, whatever it is, no judgments. I want us to be honest with each other. A shift took place in the room, an invisible barrier cracking. The walls of hesitation began to crumble. Logan frowned, taking the opportunity to search her eyes for sincerity. But what if it gets too messy? What if I don't want to feel all that? Messy is okay, Sarah replied softly. It's part of growing. I'd rather face it together than be stuck alone in our own fears. There's no timeline for honesty, just take your time. As she spoke, she saw something flicker in his expression, perhaps a trace of understanding or a spark of hope. The moment felt fragile yet powerful, a turning point waiting to unfold. Maybe I could try, he finally said, uncertainty still clinging to the edges of his voice. Something in Sarah's chest softened, a wisp of relief brushing against the tightness inside her. But just as she started to bask in the warmth of potential openness, a new worry crept back in. What if he opened up and what he shared twisted her understanding of him completely? Of course, no pressure, she replied, keeping her voice even. Just know I'm here. Logan nodded but remained quiet, the weight of unspoken words still heavy in the air between them. They both leaned back against the wall, two souls tethered by the invisible strings of an impending conversation that had barely begun. Little did they both know, the truth Logan held could shake the ground beneath them. Would she be ready for what was coming? Something deep inside whispered that the heart of the matter was about to reveal itself, laying bare their true selves in ways neither anticipated. The next few days passed in a blur of anticipation and uncertainty. Sarah's heart raced as she awaited Jake's mood swings, from a sudden burst of laughter to deep silence cloaked in his room. They danced around conversations, tiptoeing over unspoken truths like fragile glass, and Sarah's own resolve wavered. She didn't want to push him too hard, but the silence often felt heavier than any words she could muster. One evening, they found themselves at the kitchen table, remnants of dinner lingering between them. Sarah sensed the familiar tension, the kind that both weighed them down and held the promise of release. It was Jake who broke the silence, his voice trembling slightly. "Mom, about what we talked about the other night, can I share something?" Her heart soared and fell at the same time, the mixture of hope and fear pooling in her stomach. "Of course, sweetheart. I'm here for you," she replied, her hands trembling around her coffee mug, a lifeline of warmth and comfort. Jake took a deep breath, unsure where to start. The flicker of uncertainty was quickly replaced by a fierce determination. "I've been feeling like I don't belong, like I'm just the odd kid in class. It hurts, especially when I see other kids click so easily." He looked at her, eyes shimmering with vulnerability. "No one wants to feel unheard or unseen," Sarah said softly, aching inside for his pain, wishing she could erase those moments for him. "I understand. I've felt that way too." Jake looked surprised. "Really? You? That's right. Even adults struggle to find their place. It can be hard when everyone else seems to breeze through life. But honesty allows us to see each other more clearly. Sharing those feelings can help us both." Tears caught in his eyes as he absorbed her words. "I've actually tried to share with my friends, but when I do, they think I'm just acting dramatic." The gravity of his pain shook her deeply. Her heart broke for him in that moment. "Maybe they just don't know how to respond or deal with their own feelings," she suggested gently. "You need to let them know that it's okay to share. You could even inspire them." He looked down, tracing the edge of the table with his finger. "I just wish they'd see me. I want to be brave like you. But I don't know how." "You are brave, Jake. Taking a step into the unknown is courage in itself. You're not alone. We're a team, remember?" She reached out, squeezing his hand tightly. With that simple gesture, something shifted between them. The air lightened, and Jake nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try. I just want to feel like I matter." Her heart swelled with pride. "You already do. You matter to me more than anything." They sat in silence for a moment, the connection between them forging a bond filled with promises of honesty and support. Jake's nerves seemed to calm, and Sarah felt an unfamiliar relief wash over her. This was a turning point. Comfort ignited an eagerness in Jake's eyes. He was willing to share this journey together. Days unfolded with a newfound rhythm. Jake's laughter began filling their home once again. More conversations bloomed over every meal, each moment of authenticity unraveling obstacles they had once felt trapped by. Jake even approached his classmates about starting a support group, a safe space where others could talk without fear of judgment. As news spread, individuals from their community began to open up. They shared their struggles, bonding in ways they had never imagined. Conversations sparked the heart of empathy, allowing once isolated souls to unify. Jake's courage became their rallying cry. One evening, Sarah found herself sitting cross-legged on the floor of their living room, watching Jake recount to her a story from school. His eyes sparkled as he talked about the support group's first meeting. She felt an electric joy ripple through her as he beamed, his confidence blooming in front of her. "Mom, it felt so good. I think I really helped someone today." Sarah's heart swelled, choking back tears at this beautiful transformation she had witnessed in him. "You're amazing, Jake. You're changing lives, starting with your own. I want to keep going. If we're all dealing with stuff, why not share? It feels good to be heard." He was right, and she realized that her own journey had led her to empowerment in the process of supporting him. Just then, like a wave, she remembered that night when he first spoke at the assembly. The sting of her worst fears had turned into the fuel for their story together, the kind that redefines both individuals and communities. With renewed purpose, Sarah decided they would continue sharing their story, their struggles, and their joys, a collective embrace moving forward. As she tucked Jake into bed that night, she whispered, "Thank you for teaching me how to be brave." He grinned, eyes twinkling. "And thank you for being my mom. I love you." As she turned off the light, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. Their journey had brought them closer than ever, and together, they would face whatever lay ahead. Transformations were not linear. They took time, love, and connection. And now, with hearts intertwined, Sarah and Jake marched forward, ready to embrace a community renewed in empathy and understanding. This was their moment. Their shared truth would echo far beyond their home. Now, we've come to the end of this empowering journey, and I need you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support means the world. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. I want to hear your thoughts. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Thank you for being part of our community.